Hey, welcome to Foreigner in the Philippines. Well, I shouldn't really say that, should I? Because we have uh, uh, much edited and put together, produced introductions. But anyway, it's kind of like a habit for years, and those are the words we usually use. Even the kids know that about don't forget to subscribe and all of that. So it kind of becomes a habit. But I was thinking today that so often nowadays we've lost the art of words. We've lost the beauty in words. Well, not everybody, because there are still people out there, quirky as they are, who are reading books. Strange group they must be. But I looked through a few things, and even on YouTube, and I was looking at a movie which was regarded as being something of a classic movie. People watch The Shawshank Redemption, and they watch that movie often. And I looked at that, and I especially liked Morgan Freeman, of course, because he has a deep brown voice, and it rumbles away, and it's just a thing of beauty in its own. But when he speaks some words which are especially beautiful, then it becomes a real treat. So I was looking, and it got to a part where it said, I guess I just miss my friend. And it was the part where his friend, who is the hero in the story, just to give you a little rundown on what the story is, very briefly, okay? But a man who's very clever with figures, an accountant, gets taken to prison. He gets sentenced to prison. He goes through a rough time in prison, but he manages to turn it around, and he begins to do the books, the crooked books, for the warden and one of the head guards, who are villainous in the movie. And then he makes his escape, and with him he takes the books, and he gets them put away, kind of a poetic justice. So in the prison, Morgan Freeman is his friend, and they share thoughts and beliefs and ideas together, and they become very good friends. Well, of course, Morgan Freeman has spent 40 years in prison, and he's thinking about the main character and how everybody missed him because he was such a magical kind of person. Well, the punchline was, I guess I just miss my friend. But the words that lead up to that made me think, wow, it would be beautiful to be such a friend to someone that they would speak these words when you are gone. And Morgan Freeman, musing to himself, he says this: sometimes it makes me sad he's gone, and I have to remind myself that some birds aren't meant to be caged. Their feathers are just too bright, and when they fly away, the part of you that knows it was a sin to lock them up does rejoice. But still, the place you live in is that much more drab and empty that they are gone. I guess I just miss my friend. Beautiful words to have said on your leaving. But it's not hard, actually, because of books. It's not hard to find beautiful words. It's not hard to find, to be able to share the magic in somebody's mind, that of a writer. And I looked, and there's one book that's a book of short stories. If you ever feel like going out and buying several hours of magic, then you should go out and buy the complete stories of Truman Capote. And Truman Capote was himself something of a tortured personality. He was gay, he was an extremely talented writer, and suffered in the first part of his childhood. He lived with a lady who was his aunt, who he called his friend, and his friend was what other people might think of as being not disabled, but just not quite there in the traditional way of thinking. She was a magical person, and she was his friend, and she called him Buddy. Well, with his friend and Buddy, they shared incredible, beautiful moments. You should really look at it. It's called A Christmas Memory. The story is A Christmas Memory, but of course that describes his life with his friend and how they lived together in a big house, in part of a big house that was inhabited by other members of the family who had little to do with Truman Capote and his friend, and they kind of left them to it. And as long as they didn't have any problem, I guess they were left very much to their own devices. But there's one point at which his friend has a thought. Let me scratch my eye. His friend has a thought that has been troubling her or bothering her, and she has a realization. The realization is beautiful. So I will read to you from a certain part of that. It says, this is his friend talking. "My, how foolish I am," my friend cries, suddenly alert, like a woman remembering too late she has biscuits in the oven. "You know what I've always thought?" She asks in a tone of discovery, and not smiling at me, but at a point beyond. I've always thought a body would have to be sick and dying before they saw the Lord. And I imagined that when he came, it would be like looking at the Baptist window, pretty as coloured glass, with the sun pouring through. Such a shine, you don't know it's getting dark. Beautiful line. And it's been a comfort to think of that shine taking away all of the spooky feelings. But I'll wager it never happens. I'll wager at the very end a body realizes the Lord has already shown himself. The things as they are. Her hand circles in a gesture that gathers clouds. They're outside in the meadow. And her gesture gathers clouds and kites and grass and Weenie the dog pawing earth over her bone. But that things as they are, just what they've always been and seen, just what they've always seen was seeing him. As for me, I could leave the world with today in my eyes. What a beautiful line that is. I could leave the world today. In other words, I could die. I could die today and leave the world with today in my eyes. So in all that she was seeing, she would be able to die at that moment. Always reminds me of the American Indians and how after they'd got up in the morning and stretched to meet the day, they would come to peace with their Creator and they would say, this would be a good day to die. Kind of like if you have made all of your arrangements, your grand will and testimony, if you've done those things, if you've made sure that those you're going to leave behind are going to be as well as they can be without you. Hopefully you've been a good enough person that you will, in a dark way, you'll leave a hole in their lives that they will have to come to terms with, but you will have done the best that you could to leave at the right place. You know, it's kind of like the reverse of it's like the reverse of a window of opportunity. Nowadays we have these phrases, don't we? And a window of opportunity is one in which you would be able, I think of it almost like a train, and it's passing, and this is the window of opportunity, and when it comes right opposite you, you step in. But dying at the right moment would be stepping out. And this, I always thought, was incredibly well put. So Truman goes on, and there's a difference between being sad and melancholy. And when you read books which produce it within you a feeling of sadness, it's not the same as being upset or traumatized or heartbroken. It's a different feeling. It's one in which you give yourself up to that emotion. This is our last Christmas together. Life separates us. Those who knew best decide that I belong in a military school, and so follows a miserable succession of bugle-blowing prisons, grim, Rivali-ridden summer camps. I have a new home too, but it doesn't count. Home is where my friend is, and there I never go. And there she remains, puttering around the kitchen, alone with Queenie, then alone. And in brackets, "Buddy dear," she writes in her wild, hard-to-read script, "yesterday Jim Macy's horse kicked Queenie bad. Be thankful she didn't feel much. I wrapped her in a fine linen sheet and rode her in the buggy down to Simpson's pasture, where she can be with all her bones." For a few Novembers she continues to bake her fruitcakes single-handed. Not as many, but some, and of course she always sends me the best of the bunch. Also in every letter she encloses a dime, wadded in toilet paper. See a picture show and write me the story. But gradually, in her letters, she tends to confuse me with her other friend, the buddy who died in the 1880s. More and more 13ths of the month are not the only days she stays in bed. His friend would not get out of bed on the 13th. She thought that was bad luck, so she just didn't get up on the 13th. She stayed in bed. So, and more 13ths are not the only days she stays in bed. A morning arrives in November, a leafless, birdless coming of winter morning, when she cannot rise herself to exclaim, "Oh my, it's fruitcake weather." And when that happens, I know it. A message saying so merely confirms a piece of news some secret vein had already opened. In other words, he was already bleeding because he knew that she had gone. Severing from me an irreplaceable part of myself, letting it loose like a kite on a broken string. That is why, walking across a school campus on this particular December morning, I keep searching the sky, as if I expected to see, rather like hearts, a lost pair of kites hurrying toward heaven. I thought that was a wonderful line. As if I expected to see, rather like hearts, a lost pair of kites hurrying toward heaven. They used to make kites for each other. It was the only thing that they could make. They didn't have any money. And it was the thing that they could make that they could give to each other, and they became very good at those. And they had adventures together. It's an absolutely beautiful story. Let me read, if I can scan through it and read one more thing for you that I've written. So it's Christmas, and they go down to the pastures, but they're talking now about what they had for Christmas. So my friend has a better haul, talking about Christmas presents. A sack of satsumas, that's her best present. She is proudest, however, of a white wool short knitted by her married sister. But she says her favourite gift is the kite I built for her. And it is very beautiful, though not as beautiful as the one she made for me, which is blue and scattered with gold and green, good conduct stars. Moreover, my name is painted on it, Buddy. Buddy, the wind is blowing. And the wind is blowing, and nothing will do till we've run to a pasture below the house where Queenie has scooted to bury her bones, and where a winter hence Queenie will be buried too. There, plunging through the healthy waist-high grass, we unreel our kites, feel them twitching at the string like skyfish as they swim into the wind. Satisfied, sun-warmed, we sprawl on the grass and peel satsumas and watch our kites cavort. Soon I forget the socks and the hand-me-down sweaters that I've had for Christmas, and I'm as happy as if we'd already won the $50,000 grand prize in that coffee naming contest. And that's where she says, how foolish I am. And she talks about seeing God in all of the things that she has always seen. Thanks for being with me on a little word travel. Bye for now.